Board sailing, sailboarding, windsurfing, call it what you like, but there's no doubt that this water sport has developed over a short period of time into one of today's most exciting and exhilarating activities. From humble beginnings in the USA in the late 60s at the hands of a small group of dedicated pioneers, the sport has found acceptance on every continent, achieving a commercial success that spawned an international industry that now utilises sophisticated and advanced production and manufacturing techniques with much dedication to research and development. Extending to all corners of the globe, windsurfing is more than a sport. It's a way of life, with millions of participants, male and female, of all ages. And it's a lot of fun. Australia's Tom Luedecke has won 2 world championships and has competed extensively in professional windsurfing competitions throughout the world. He has consistently been placed in the top 10 in international contests and has developed a high profile within the sport. When not travelling between contests, he works together with his sponsor on developing and improving windsurfing equipment. He has operated a windsurfing retail outlet and successfully designed and marketed equipment that bears his name. Tom Luedecke is dedicated to the windsurfing life and derives great satisfaction in introducing people to the sport and helping them develop their skills.
Before we get started, let's take a look at the ideal board you might want to begin with. Consider the following factors. Generally, the longer the board, the better it is for learning and light winds. Shorter boards are more manoeuvrable and really only suit stronger winds. Try and start with a board around 3.5 metres long. You'll find it easier with a board that is at least 65 centimetres wide. We need around 200 litres of volume to help stability, flotation and balance. Most boards are supplied with one sail of varying shape and material, but usually around 6 square metres in size. This is quite powerful, and you may like to try learning or sailing in stronger winds with a smaller sail, say 4.5 metres or 5 metres. Let's set up the board. Most modern fun boards have foot straps and an adjustable mast track. And when we're starting off, we don't want to bother with these to begin with. So to make it easier, we're going to lock the mast track, and most boards you can do this. At the moment it's sliding. If we lock it in the middle position, somewhere in the middle of the board, it's going to be easiest to begin to learn to sailboard. So we'll lock that, and that's fixed now. Then the foot straps, I've removed them because they only tend to get in the way, and you only trip over them. Then you've got your centerboard. That goes in the hole in the middle of the board. Put that in and fold it up securely. Then check your fin at the back of the board. Just make sure it's firm, it doesn't slide around, it's not going to fall out of the board. Okay, we're going to begin by putting the mast onto the sail. Feed the mast up the sail pocket. It's quite easy to do. And push it into the pocket all the way. Important to check that the top of the mast is actually right in the top of the socket. That's firmly in. Once I've done that, I'm going to attach the mast base universal into the mast. And then feed the rope through the eye of the sail and down through the mast base again. The system will vary from board to board, but it's basically all the same. And to finish off, you have a cleat, which you put the rope into the cleat. This allows you to adjust the tension of the sail. And then pull the sail down fairly firmly. Before we attach the boom to the sail, we're going to check the height of the boom. It's very important to have the boom at the right height. And the easiest way to do this is make sure your mast base is on, lift the mast up, then compare. Now, chin height is always the biggest when beginning. So measure across from your chin, hold this position, or just remember it. Sail back down, remembering the position. Put the boom over the top. All the systems are a little bit different, how you attach the boom to the mast. But check with your manual or with your local sailboard shop and find a way to tie the boom tightly onto the mast, because that's very important for control. When I attach the boom at this angle, when I fold it down, it stretches the rope out here and becomes quite firm on the mast. That's important. Now again, lift the sail up and check the height of the boom again. There we have it at chin height. That's important to start off because you're going to have the best control. If the boom's too high, it's going to be too difficult to reach. If it's too low, it's going to be too difficult to handle the sail. The next step, tying the outfall of the sail. Pull the sail to the end of the boom. Take the rope. Now most booms will have some sort of pulley system here. You'll have to, again, look in the instructions how it's going to work. So feed the rope through the eye of the sail a few times. And most systems will have some sort of cleating mechanism here to lock the sail. Just pull it out hard. It should always be well within inside the boom. It shouldn't be overhanging the boom. So pull the sail firmly out. Then we move back to the downhaul. Now we're basically just going to fine trim the sail. Notice the creases in the sail up here. That means the sail's not stretched properly down the luff. To fix that, we're going to pull down on the downhaul. Notice the creases disappearing. So pull it just tight enough so all the creases have vanished. And then you'll know the sail is correctly tensioned for the wind strength. That's looking better. Now the next thing is, if your sail has battens, just check they're all securely in. Most of the time they stay in the sail all the time. This one we pull tight to remove any wrinkles along the batten's pocket. And that's basically it. It's very simple to put together. The other thing is the uphaul rope, which you use to pull the sail out of the water. This will have some system to hook it on, so you can always find the rope. We just hook that onto the bottom. Then again, always check everything. The boom height, the tensions. It looks like we have good tension. The boom is at chin height. And we just check the sail to make sure it's filling properly. Now just to set up the sail, remember it shouldn't be overhanging the boom. So it's just going to be pulled firmly on the outhaul. And we can even pull this a bit tighter down here to remove those creases. And tie off any excess rope at the bottom here, otherwise you'll trip on it. Again with the outhaul, tie off the excess rope. And then the sail's ready to go on the water. The sail behaves much like an aeroplane wing. Wind flows over it and generates a lift. This force is normally at 90 degrees to the sail and wants to push the board and sail sideways. The centreboard is used to transform this sideways energy into a forwards force. Basically, it protrudes under the board and together with the fin, reduces sideways drift. Let's take a look at the wind. The different wind directions each have a commonly used name. Onshore winds blow towards the beach. Offshore winds blow away from the beach. And cross-shore winds blow across the beach from various angles. Before you set sail, always check the wind direction. There are a few simple ways to do this. Look for a flag or rising smoke, or throw something light in the air. Or the simplest way of all is to lift your sailboard rig and see in which direction it flaps. Avoid sailing in offshore winds, as a beginner especially, because there's a definite risk of drifting out into the open water. All sailing craft, even sailboards, cannot sail directly into the wind. The closest you can sail to the wind is 45 degrees. So to reach a point upwind, we must sail on alternate tacks, zigzagging as close as possible to the wind. This is called tacking. Now to sail downwind or away from the wind, the sail moves around in front of the sailor. We call this running. Sailing across the wind is called reaching. Now that we've learned about the wind and a few important terms, let's go sailing. Here's the best way to carry a board. Lift it somewhere around the balance point. The centreboard's a good start. Or if you've got two people, grab an end each. Carrying the sail can be quite a handful, especially if it's windy. Try it on your head like this, but remember, keep the mast foot into the wind. Before we start the first lesson, let's do a little exercise just to get the feel for the board. Take your board in the water, and what we're going to do is try balancing on the board. Try standing in the center of the board and rock the board around a bit, really to get the feel of the board. Now's the time to go into the water, so let's connect the mast to the board and get out there. Make sure the mast base is securely attached to the board. That's going to avoid any possibility of the mast popping out. Okay, move the board out far enough into the water so that you can put the centerboard down, at least partly. That's going to make the board a lot more stable. Then remember that when you get on the board, put your feet either side of the mast, evenly spaced, about shoulder width. Get the feel for the board first before you even bother to pull the sail out. Don't stand like this because you're pushing the nose too much and the board will turn in this fashion. And the same, don't stand at the back because you're pushing the tail too much and the board will turn under. Stand evenly at shoulder width, either side of the sail. Then remember to have the board at 90 degrees to the wind and the sail pointing straight downwind. Then begin, put the even feet pressure, so you're going to have to lean back. Now it's important now to bend your knees and use your body weight to pull the sail out of the water. Now don't rush into anything, just stay in this position and get your balance. Pull the boom up close to your face. And this is called the neutral position, and you can remain in this position for quite a while, quite happily. You don't always have the sail on the right side. This time it's pointing into the wind. It should really be on this side, so it's a little bit more difficult. But it's basically the same. Pull the sail out. As it blows over, quickly move around the mast. And then let it down again if necessary. But do the whole process quickly. But be ready to change sides as it comes over. Pull the sail out and let it flip over the board quickly and move around the mast. Then begin in the normal fashion. Okay, from the neutral position we can actually steer the board. If we lean the sail to the front of the board, we'll turn away from the wind. And if we lean the sail to the rear of the board, we'll turn into the wind. To further improve the turning in this neutral position, use the foot pressure. So if I want to turn into the wind, I lean the sail to the rear and I push on the back foot. This turns the board even faster. Again, to turn away from the wind, lean the sail forward and push on the front foot. It's possible to turn the board in all sorts of directions just from the neutral position. Now, a good practice maneuver before we actually begin sailing is to try turning the board from the neutral position and even turn the board around completely the other direction so you're going back to where you came from. Lean the sail to the rear of the board turns into the wind. Now take small steps around the front of the mast, keep the sail leaning back so that the boom almost touches the water. Now keep walking the board around until you're 180 degrees in the other direction. So now you're coming back to where you came from. Again, if you want to turn the board back the other way, lean the sail to the rear again. Notice how the board turns into the wind. I keep leaning the sail back, take the small steps around the mast. It's a lot of foot pressure on the board, turning it actually, until I'm 180 degrees again the other way. Now it's also possible to do the turn downwind. To do this by leaning the sail forward. Notice the board turning away from the wind, take some steps around behind the mast, and it's important to always keep your back or your body between the mast and the wind. That way you'll always be at the right position. So let's turn again. Lean the sail back, the board is turning into the wind. Now keep between the wind and the mast always. So take the small steps around the mast. Remember, always keep your back between the wind and the mast. Now I've turned the board again 180 degrees. Let's just stop for a minute and emphasize a few major points. Always keep your back to the wind, whichever maneuver you're attempting. Keep your body between the mast and the wind. Ending up around the wrong side of the sail will invariably lead to a fall. And take time in this position to regain your balance and confidence. Let's get underway. Begin in the neutral position. Take the rear hand, place it on the top of the rope. With the front hand, cross over the top and grasp hold of the boom. Pull the boom up close to your body. Now extend the sail to the front of the board and take hold of the boom with the rear hand. This will get you moving and sailing along. Begin in the neutral position with the board across the wind and the wind on my back and the sail straight downwind. Then begin with the back hand, place it at the top of the rope. Now it's important with the front hand, cross over the top and let go of the backhand. Pull it up close to you. Now this is important, to lean the sail to the front of the board, then take hold of the boom further back and lean back and absorb some of the weight of the wind. You may have to take a step back, cross over, but bring the mast well past your body and into the wind even. Then as you lean it forward to the front of the board, sheet in with the rear hand and lean back and absorb the pressure of the wind in the sail. That's important, that the sail is actually leaning over on top of you. Let's look at the theory behind steering the sailboard. You'll need to know this if you want to turn around and get back to where you started. Basically, a sailboard pivots around the centerboard. By leaning the sail forward, the wind pressure in the sail pulls the nose away from the wind. Then if you lean the sail to the rear of the board, the wind pressure in the sail pushes the nose up into the wind. Let's see how we can alter course once we're underway. If we want to turn more into the wind, we lean the sail to the rear of the board. That's called heading up. If we want to turn away from the wind, we lean the sail to the front of the board. That's called bearing away. When we're happy with our new direction, simply bring the sail back up to the normal upright position again, and we'll go straight. So again, let's try turning into the wind or heading up. This is done by taking a step back, pushing on the back foot and leaning the sail back to the rear of the board. The board turns into the wind. Taking a step back, pushing on the back foot and leaning the sail back to the rear of the board. Let's try turning away from the wind, what's called bearing away. First lean the sail forward to the front of the board and sheet in the sail. Push on the front foot to turn the nose away from the wind. Let's go over that again. First lean the sail forward to the front of the board and sheet in the sail. Push on the front foot to turn the nose away from the wind. Once we're underway on the water, each hand has a purpose. The front hand's job is to hold the mast upright and close to your body. The rear hand's job will be to sheet the sail in and out, which will control how much power we have in the sail. So let's take a look at that. When we're getting overpowered, we've got two choices. First is to sheet out and reduce the pressure in the sail. If that still doesn't help, take hold of the rope underneath and resume the neutral position. Then sheet in the sail again. So sheet out to reduce power, sheet in to give you more power. Let's have a look on the beach. If you find yourself in this position, getting overpowered, don't struggle and risk falling in. Release the rear hand, take hold of the rope underneath the other hand, and resume the neutral position. It's very easy to do and certainly saves a lot of time pulling up the sail. When we're getting overpowered like this, always sheet out the rear hand and reduce the pressure in the sail. Again, sheet out the rear hand. The front hand is keeping the mast upright. If we release the front hand like this, the sail doesn't spill any wind, and quite often we fall in the water. So remember, see how important it was to sheet out the rear hand and use the front hand to keep the mast upright close to your body. Don't sheet out the front hand, it never works. Always sheet out the rear hand, and that'll just allow the sail to spill out the pressure of the wind, and then you'll be safe. Let's begin by doing a very basic tack. Start off reaching across the wind. Now, lean the sail to the rear of the board so that the board turns into the wind. As the board goes into the wind, take hold of the rope and walk slightly around the front of the mast. Keep pulling the sail across the board. Now take the rope with both hands and turn the board the rest of the way with your feet. Leaning the sail to the front will assist turning the board. Start off reaching across the wind. Now, lean the sail to the rear of the board so that the board turns into the wind. As the board goes into the wind, take hold of the rope and walk slightly around the front of the mast. Keep pulling the sail across the board. Now take the rope with both hands and turn the board the rest of the way with your feet. Leaning the sail to the front will assist turning the board. Now begin in the normal fashion. and you've just completed a very basic tack. Let's try turning the board down through the wind, which is called the jibe. Begin again, cross the wind. Now when we're going to turn away from the wind, we're going to lean the sail forward. Sheet in with the rear hand and push the nose away with the front foot. Then take a step back and bring the feet either side of the centreboard. Keep leaning the sail forward and across the board. Now let go of the rear hand and take the rope underneath. Let the sail swing across and keep leaning it to this side. Step forward with the front foot again, and again we're in the neutral position and we continue on. Begin again, cross the wind. Now when we're going to turn away from the wind, we're going to lean the sail forward. Sheet in with the rear hand and push the nose away with the front foot. Then take a step back and bring the feet either side of the centreboard. Keep leaning the sail forward and across the board. Now let go of the rear hand and take the rope underneath. Let the sail swing across and keep leaning it to this side. Step forward with the front foot again, and again we're in the neutral position and we continue on. If you can't get back to shore, either there's too much wind or you're just plain exhausted, don't wait until it's too late. First try and hail down a boat for help. We do this using the international distress signal, which is both hands over your head waving with your fists open. Most motorists will recognise this and come and assist you. If there's nobody around, we're going to have to de-rig the board ourselves. Take the mast base out. We want to roll up the sail. So we're going to undo the outhaul. Then roll up the sail tightly. Here's the uphaul rope. Around the sail. Secure it firmly. Put the rig on top of the board and kneel on top of the rig. Keep the centreboard down for stability and then paddle back to the beach. You know, windsurfing is such an enjoyable pastime. It's often easy to get carried away with enthusiasm and overlook some of the following basic safety considerations. Remember to try and stay close to your starting point until your skills improve. Increasing wind strength and the fact that you may have drifted off downwind can go unnoticed when you're having fun. Cross-shore or onshore winds are best from a safety point of view. Avoid offshore winds until you're quite proficient. The beach should ideally have a sandy bottom and be shallow quite far out. Expect to drift downwind while learning. Once you've successfully sailed around for a while, you begin searching for new challenges, greater speed, more control, and smoother turning. This next section is intended for the advancing board sailor who has mastered the basic skills. The intermediate techniques discussed will provide a starting point from which to progress to the high-performance areas of the sport. Getting on the water should be smooth and swift. Let's learn the beach start. Begin by lifting the sail and let the wind catch under it. Take the wishbone, then pick up the rear of the board. Now push equally on the board and the mast, all the way into the water. Once you're in the water, drop the board, grab the mast and lift it over your head. Grab the wishbone as well. Now lift the sail up and let the wind catch into the sail and let it lift you onto the board. Step on the board and sail away gracefully. Depending which angle to the wind we sail, we have to sheet the sail differently. Let's take a look how we know how much to sheet the sail on. When the sail's flapping like this, it's not doing anything basically. We have to pull on with the rear hand, sheeting in, and that gives us some power in the sail. Now to judge how much to pull it in, we look at the front of the sail in this area. When it's flapping, we know we have to pull the sail on more. So let's take a look. That looks good. Now it's starting to flap a bit, so we pull the sail in more. As the wind increases, the centre of effort of the sail moves back along the boom. Compensate this by moving the hands back on the boom and stepping back slightly. First thing, move the hands further back along the boom. This allows you to get back more to the centre of the sail. Now take the feet back behind the mast and lean back and really hang off the wishbones. Again, to power the sail, do the same. Sheet out to depower, sheet in to power. The basic tack which you mastered in light winds isn't really suitable for stronger winds, where a slow turn can result in loss of balance. The tack is still basically the same, only that we simplify the movement of the hands and the feet to speed it up. Begin by sailing across the wind. Move the back foot back and towards the downwind rail. Now tilt the sail to the back to turn into the wind. Take your front hand from the boom and take hold of the mast. Turn the board past head to wind by pulling the sail across the centre line. Release the rear hand and step quickly around the mast. Throw the mast forwards. Place your hands on the boom. Now keep the sail forward to pull the board away from the wind. Push with the front foot. Once underway, move the feet back and bring the rig upright. Let's go over that again. Begin by sailing across the wind. Move the back foot back and towards the downwind rail. Now tilt the sail to the back to turn into the wind. Take your front hand from the boom and take hold of the mast. Turn the board past head to wind by pulling the sail across the centre line. Release the rear hand and step quickly around the mast. Throw the mast forwards. Place your hands on the boom. Now keep the sail forward to pull the board away from the wind. Push with the front foot. Once underway, move the feet back and bring the rig upright. Practice the fast tack. Maybe you'll only do a step at a time, but eventually it'll flow into a smooth manoeuvre. Again, the power jibe is similar to the basic jibe, but permits greater speed and control. It's fun to master and easy to perfect. Begin sailing across the wind. Bear away in the usual manner. Now step back and push down on the windward rail. Lean the sail over in the same direction and lean your body into the turn to counterbalance the sail's weight. Continue in this position until the board is pointing straight downwind. Now release the backhand and take hold of the mast or the rope and continue pushing down on the outside rail. Release the front hand and move the sail forward. Stop pushing the rail down and move the front foot forward. Sheet in and sail away across the wind. Generally, the more wind you have, the further you will have to step back on the board. Let's go over that again. Begin sailing across the wind. Bear away in the usual manner. Now step back and push down on the windward rail. Lean the sail over in the same direction and lean your body into the turn to counterbalance the sail's weight. Continue in this position until the board is pointing straight downwind. Now release the backhand and take hold of the mast or the rope and continue pushing down on the outside rail. Release the front hand and move the sail forward. Stop pushing the rail down and move the front foot forward. Sheet in and sail away across the wind. The ability to sail into the wind is one of the most valuable techniques you will learn, since it allows you to sail in any direction you choose, with full confidence in your ability to return to the beach. As you have probably noticed, it's almost impossible to sail closer to the wind than 45 degrees. If you wish to sail to a point to windward, tacking must be employed. Tacking, of course, involves sailing across the wind in alternate directions. When we're sailing into the wind, tacking upwind, we basically want to sail as close to the 45-degree angle as we can. That way we get there faster. So let's take a look exactly how we do that. When we're heading across the wind, we lean the sail back so the board points more into the wind. Sheet the sail and the boom right into the centre line of the board. This way you know you're pointing as close to the wind as you can. If we sheet the sail out wider, we can't point as close to the wind. So make sure it's close to the centre line of the board. Let's take another look at that. We sheet the boom in close to the centre line. Now if we go too far into the wind, the sail flaps at the front a bit. That means we're pointing too much into the wind, and we have to turn the nose of board away from the wind. The first time you encounter more wind, you'll find yourself a beginner all over again. But don't lose heart, it's only a temporary stage. All it requires is a refinement of the techniques you've already mastered. By tightening the downhaul and the outhaul, we can make the sail flatter. This will make it easier to handle. The first thing you'll notice in stronger winds is that the sail is harder to pull out of the water. Now it's really important to keep the back straight, bend the knees, and use your body weight to pull the sail out of the water. And make sure the board is positioned across the wind. Gain confidence in standing further back and leaning the sail back. The more the wind increases, the more you move your hands and feet back and lean the sail over on top of you. Concentrate most of your weight on the back foot and keep your front legs straight. Now your strength and weight are most efficiently used. Importantly, don't give up. Practice brings results. In stronger winds, the board is much more sensitive to sail movements, so abrupt changes should be avoided. To change direction, only a slight movement of the sail is necessary. Foot straps were initially designed for wave jumping, but were also found to be useful for high-speed sailing on flat water. They give the rider an added sense of security and improve control of the board. Foot straps can attach to boards in various ways, depending on the manufacturer's preference. Make sure your feet do not extend too far into the straps, otherwise you could injure yourself when you fall. The sliding mast track allows us to alter the position of the mast while sailing. Basically, when sailing upwind, the mast should be forward. This pushes the nose of the board down, giving the board a longer waterline length. It goes faster and it's easier to handle the sail, especially in strong winds. When sailing away from the wind or downwind, we pull the mast back. We use this together with the foot straps in the rear of the board, so we stand further back. This reduces the board's wetted surface and makes it go faster when we're sailing away from the wind. To operate the mast track, always use the front foot. Leave the back foot at the rear of the board. Press on the pedal and push the mast forward. For general all-round sailing, leave the mast track somewhere in the middle position. When it's windy, going downwind helps to put the centerboard up and the mast track back. So let's just show how we do that. Begin by pushing the centerboard up. It's right up. Put your foot on the pedal, take hold of the mast and slide the track back to the back position. Lift the nose of the board out of the water and definitely get going planing faster. Let's put the mast forward again and the centerboard down. Begin by pressing the pedal with the front foot. Slide the mast to the front. Then go for the centerboard. Push it well down. We're ready to go upwind again. The board has more waterline length. It's definitely planing a lot better upwind. The purpose of the centerboard is to stop the board drifting sideways, away from the wind. It can retract into the board when going downwind to reduce drag and turbulence and make handling easier. When sailing in stronger winds, the lift created by the centerboard increases dramatically to the point where it tries to rise to the surface, placing the board on its rail and throwing you in the water. So if you experience handling problems with the board, try retracting the centerboard a little. Once you become reasonably proficient at handling light to medium strength winds, the only factor limiting your sailing time will be your ability to hold onto the boom. A harness, by transferring most of the force away from your hands and arms, enables you to conserve energy and extend your sailing time. There's a lot of harnesses available. Selecting one of them should be based on comfort and ease of use. The harness lines connect to the boom. The rope should be stiff to make hooking and unhooking as easy as possible. On the harness we have a hook which we connect into the rope. Let's see how that's done. Bend the arms and then flip the rope up into the hook. Now lean back and take the weight of the sail in the harness. To unhook, again bend the arms and move the body down. Practice using the harness on the dry land first and get the feel for sheeting in and out while you're using the harness. Now let's take a look how we use the harness. To hook in, pull the booms in and swing the rope towards your body and engage the hook. Now lean back away from the rig. To unhook, pull in on the booms and the line will drop out. It's important to practice this on the land first, then try it on the water. Once you're hooked in, keep an eye out for gusts and be ready to sheet out. Now let's take a closer look at the harness ropes. They should be positioned about shoulder width apart, and the rope should extend out about 45 centimetres. Depending on the wind strength, the positioning of the harness ropes will vary. Sheet the sail in. Now move the hands closer together until they have equal pull on each hand. Position the ropes around this point. Now to allow for the greater wind strength on the water, we're going to move them each back 10 centimetres. That'll give us the ideal position when we're actually on the water. Having the hook up or down is a matter of personal preference. I prefer it up. That way when I adjust the sail, sheeting in for the wind strength, the rope doesn't always fall out. Also, if for some reason you're falling around the front, it's very easy to bend forward and release the hook. Let's have a quick look at the types of harnesses available. The conventional chest harness. It offers good back support and is easy to handle. The buoyancy harness. Often required by law in some waterways, it offers good flotation for safety and is quite comfortable but rather bulky. The waist harness. This is worn loosely around the waist and it allows you to have freedom in the upper body. It's very comfortable and lightweight, plus you get a tan. Make sure it's firm enough to offer good back support. The seat harness. This is so called because you actually sit down in it. It's comfortable but requires some experience to handle. This gives you total freedom of the upper body. It also uses the body weight to get the maximum power out of the sail. Try them on in a shop and decide which one you prefer, and then get used to it. Eventually you'll develop your own techniques for handling the harness, and you'll be surprised how much it can extend your sailing time by, especially in stronger winds. Although high-performance equipment might warrant its own film, it's not necessary to become an equipment freak to enjoy strong winds. Putting some thought into how often you sail, where you sail, and in which conditions can narrow the options down. Basically, the smaller the board is, the more wind you're going to need to have fun. Modern fun boards around 3.5 metres are great to learn on and perform quite well in strong winds. But if you really want to sail in high winds, you'll probably consider some more specialised equipment. My best advice as an all-round board, especially if you're just starting to ride a shorter board, is to get what's called a slalom board. Now these boards are derived directly from modern fun board competitions, and they have all the features of an ideal shorter board. They're usually around 2.5 to 3 metres with good flotation, and they have a clean, fast shape. They normally have no centreboard, but incorporate a concave bottom for fast planing and sharp rails to help you sail close to the wind. If you're not feeling quite so ambitious, try a smaller size fun board, incorporating a centreboard. This will still allow you to try many of the high-performance manoeuvres, but with a little more security. Whatever type of board you decide on, make sure it's durable, especially when learning. Let's talk a little about the components of the rig before we move on to the water. High-performance rigs don't actually vary much from the basic rig. In fact, most booms and masts are suitable for all aspects of windsurfing. Booms can come in all shapes and sizes, with various methods of adjustment and various types of finish. Importantly, they should be light and stiff. A telescopic boom can adjust to a variety of sail sizes and is a must for the enthusiast. Don't go for an overly wide boom, as they tend to be difficult to handle, even though they are the current fashion. Masts can either be made from aluminium or fiberglass. For flat water, the aluminium mast performs best, being considerably lighter and stiffer. But for wave riding, a fiberglass mast, which is more flexible, can withstand the pounding waves. A strong height-adjustable mast base will be essential to suit sails with differing luff lengths. Choosing a good high-performance sail is essential. The sail provides the power, and although they may all look similar, some provide more power and are easier to handle. The sail should be well constructed and made of a durable material if it's going to last out in strong winds. Good performance and easy handling is best achieved with the new RAF or camber-induced style sails. These sails have longer booms than wave sails. This increases their range of use and provides much more power in light winds. The RAF or rotating asymmetrical foil sail achieves a high degree of efficiency and control by combining full-length battens with a tight-fitting, rotating luff sleeve. These sails are proven performers, being very powerful but light, so especially useful when learning shortboard manoeuvres. Camber-induced sails are currently the most successful racing sails on the market. They feature plastic devices which permit the full-length battens to compress against the mast. The resulting sail has an efficient and stable shape. The wider luff pocket fares in the join between mast and sail, increasing efficiency. These sails are fast, accelerate well, and can handle being overpowered. However, rigging is slightly more involved, and many manoeuvres are more difficult because of the sail's rigidity. For what we propose to learn in the next lessons, let's stick with a simpler RAF type sail. It will be much easier to learn with and still provides more than enough power for exciting sailing. First remember, always stand to windward of the board and rig. Always keep the front of the boom and the luff of the sail pointing into the wind. Put the rig on your head and your hand on the foot strap. And for long distances, flip the board over on top of the rig. Everybody likes to leave the beach smoothly and efficiently, so let's take a closer look at a very easy way. Push and pull on the mast to keep the board across the wind. Now walk out into deeper water. Take hold of the boom and push the rig forward. At the same time, step onto the board with the back foot. If the board heads up into the wind, lean the sail forward and pull in with the back foot. Now sheet in and step on with the front foot. It's important to remember to keep upwind of the board and make sure the board is across the wind when you want to begin sailing. The water start is very similar to the beach start, but it occurs in deep water. It will require considerable practice to master, but well worthwhile. Once mastered, it's actually easier than uphauling. To begin, use a floaty board and a shorter boom sail. It's most important to have the sail on board at the correct angle. Swim the board into a position so that the luff is across the wind and the board pointing into the wind. Take the mast somewhere above the boom and swim the sail upwind, lifting it as you go. Once some wind gets underneath it, pull it back down a little until the back of the boom clears the water and the sail is hovering. Try not to put too much weight on the rig by treading water. Place your hand on the boom, still treading water. Keep the sail as high as possible. Now swim towards the board with your feet and push on the mast to turn the nose away from the wind. When the board is across the wind, place your back foot on the board. Tread water with the front foot. Extend the front arm and push the mast as upright as possible. Sheet in hard with the back hand and at the same time lift yourself onto the board. Now use the board as a step. Keep the back leg bent. Hold your arms high to expose the maximum sail area. Lift your front foot on and start sailing. If the board keeps heading up, incline the rig forward and swim towards the board. If you feel like you might get pulled over, luff the sail. Swim the board into position, mast across the wind, board pointing into the wind. In light winds, keep the sail as upright as possible to expose the maximum area. Greater leverage can be obtained by placing the front hand on the mast. Keep your weight low and as much over the board as possible. Don't be discouraged if you have difficulty at first. These techniques require practice, but once mastered will greatly enhance your sailing pleasure. Try perfecting the beach start first. It's an excellent step to learning the water start. Jibing a shortboard or funboard in stronger winds takes some practice, but it's a lot of fun. It's like making a smooth parallel turn in snow or carving a water ski. The feeling is incredible. The key to learning carved jibes quickly and efficiently is total commitment to the move. Hesitation will result in a wipeout. We must try and keep the board planing throughout the jibe. Make sure you have good speed and are fully planing. Bear away slightly and remove your back foot from the foot strap, placing it on the leeward rail in front of the rear foot strap. Lean into the turn and importantly lean forward with the body and the rig, bending at the knees. Put pressure on the back foot and lift the front foot. Keep sheeting out the sail and move the rear hand at least 1 foot along the boom. There should be little or no pressure in the rig. Carve the board hard by pushing on the rear foot. Now flip the sail around by pushing away with the rear hand and throwing it forward with the front hand. Coming out of the jibe, you should be leaning forward and the sail should be well forward to stop the board rounding into the wind. Shift pressure to the front foot and only now slide the feet around. It's important to remember these points. Carve a constant arc. Lean forward with the body and rig. Slide the rear hand along the boom. Flip the sail when pointing downwind. The rig should maintain a constant angle. Move the rig forward coming out of the jibe and change the feet at the end of the jibe. The most common mistake is to lean back. Jibing around some buoys will give you great practice. Remember, wider tail boards need more care when initiating the turn, and they'll rarely turn as tight as a narrower tail. Don't try and turn too tight. You should aim for a radius of 4 to 5 meters. Now let's take a look at the duck jibe. Before you think about duck jibing, you should have mastered the normal jibe so that your exit speed is as good as your entry speed. When successfully completed, the duck jibe is one of the most exciting and satisfying manoeuvres. It's important to use a board that is fast yet manoeuvrable. And the most important thing is to keep planing the whole way through the move. Begin similar to a normal jibe. When bearing away to start the jibe, sheet in with the rear hand and continue to press on the rear foot. Lean forward. Now release the front hand and the rig will fall downwind. Place this hand near the end of the boom. Release the back hand and throw the rig over your head. Remember to carve the board the whole time by pushing down on the rail and leaning forward. As you go under the sail, reach forward with the old back hand and grasp the boom as close to the mast as possible. Simultaneously release the old front hand. Switch the feet around and sheet in the sail. Practice the hand moves on dry land. Release the front hand, place behind rear hand, reach under the sail and grasp the boom, put pressure on the inside rail, throw the boom overhead and release the old front hand. If you find the rig is falling into the water, you may be releasing too late or your board control is insufficient. Concentrate on carving the board and release the sail almost immediately you initiate the jibe. It's important that the sail falls well down towards the water so that you can carve around underneath it. Tacking shortboards is fun and sometimes necessary, especially when you're trying to sail back upwind. It's better than a jibe because you don't really lose any distance downwind. The reason why it's done fast is that there's not much flotation up the front, so you must move around fast before the board has time to submerge. Tacks on a shortboard are very similar to fast tacks on a longboard. We saw these back in the intermediate section. Lean the sail to the rear of the board. Grasp hold of the mast and pull the sail across the centre line. Push the tail around with the rear foot. Now move quickly around the mast while it's leaning back. This counterbalances your weight at the front of the board. Change hands on the mast. Throw the rig forwards and sheet in the sail with the rear hand. Now move the front hand onto the boom when underway. Getting the board planing so it's skipping across the water should not be difficult in high winds. However, in moderate winds, we sometimes have to work a little to get the board really moving. We call this pumping. By moving the body and sail rapidly in unison, we can promote planing. You need to develop a constant rhythm. Pull the sail in, lifting up the feet to take the weight off the board, then ease the sail out and straighten your arms and legs. Do this constantly and you're planing. Pumping the sail increases the wind's movement over the sail, generating more power. Lifting your weight off the board makes it lighter and releases some of the adhesion between water and board. The combination of the two means more speed and more thrills. Here's a few more tips for going fast. It's important to have your rig set up correctly if you want to get the most out of your sailboard. Let's have a look at some of the common problems. Firstly, sloppy boom, a major cause of handling problems. And let's have a look at the sail. These vertical creases mean there's not enough batten tension along the batten. These horizontal creases mean there's not enough luff tension down the sail. The overhang on the boom will only drag in the water, and it also moves up and down, creating handling problems. Now let's take a look how we can rectify these problems. Adjust the boom so it fits tightly on the mast. Then adjust the boom to suit your sail. So that it fits snugly into the end of the boom. Push the batten in firmly to remove all the creases. Lastly, make sure the sail is correctly tensioned down the luff. Remove all the creases. The foot of the sail shouldn't be more than 6 inches above the deck of the board. Now that we've got the rig set up correctly, let's move on to the water and see how we can improve your technique. Firstly, try not pulling the sail over on top of you. Stand more upright with your arms stretched out. Adopt a comfortable position against the forces of the sail. Bend the back leg, but keep the front one straighter. Put the sail more upright in the middle of the board. Rake the sail back and move back into the rear straps. It's not always easy at first, the tail may sink. Try again in a gust, but this time hang more off the boom to take the weight off the board. Avoid oversheeting the sail. Leaning the sail back closes the gap between the board and the foot of the sail. It's something all top speedsters do. Set your sail low enough on the luff so that you can close the gap and prevent the escape of air under the sail. Check your board is flat on the water. Try leaning more off the rig, transferring your weight down the mast. This pushes the nose down to counterbalance your weight at the tail of the board. Head more downwind in the stronger gusts, and then head up in the lighter patches to maintain speed. When going really fast, try to move your body as far from the rig as possible. Stretch the arms out and stand the rig upright. Absorb the bumps or chop with your legs, keeping the upper body still, as in skiing. Jumping is probably the most exciting and most photographed of all sailboard manoeuvres. You don't need surf to jump. A small chop in the bay can provide an ideal ramp. What's important for a good jump is speed and timing. While planing at full speed, look ahead and upwind for a nice large, distinct chop. This is where timing comes in. you must turn into the wind just before the chop so that you sail up the face of it. Turning too early will mean you lose a lot of speed, and turning too late will put you at the wrong angle to jump efficiently. Just as the nose leaves the water, push down on the back foot and sheet in slightly. This pumping movement will help you spring off the ramp. When you're airborne, lift your knees up to your body to increase the distance between the board and the water. Lift the windward rail slightly. Now push the nose more downwind with the front foot so that when you land, the board is sailing across the wind again. Pull the tail of the board to windward with the rear foot. Lean the sail over you rather than straight upright. It will lift you more. Try landing nose first and then straighten the legs out to flatten the board. Keep trying because it's really a lot of fun. Although the water start is much preferred for starting shortboards, sometimes it's necessary to uphaul. If the wind drops and you can no longer water start, it's nice to know you won't drift around forever. It's similar to uphauling on a longboard, just a little more unstable, but well worth practicing. If you can move the mast base, position it in the middle of the board. This will let you stand on the floatier part of the board. Position your feet either side of the mast so that you can shift your weight around as the mast comes out of the water. Pull the mast quickly out of the water. Now sheet in immediately to gain balance. Lean back to avoid being pulled around the front. Windsurfing is very easy and enjoyable, but take time to learn the right way. Remember, like any sport, once you've mastered the basics, all you need is practice, and in time, you too will be teaching others.